telling you why. The Star speaks on Ruto's tough choices on the economy. What will he do to lower the cost of living? While the Standard speaks on united by fear factor politics. When two leaders are under siege, well, the best solution is perhaps to come together and see how do they bring themselves out of it. So that is on the Standard. I'll be telling you about that as well in just a bit. So do keep your feedback coming in on our SMS line, that is 23059. Talk to us as well. We are live across our social media platforms. On X, the hashtag is Morning Live at It's EBN TV, or you can as well tag me at It's Nanjala. How about we get started on the latest making headlines across the country? We'll kick it off with the medics. Now, Health Workers Union in the country early on Monday released a statement to the media as doctors' strike continues. Clinical officers and laboratory technicians on strike continue to insist on their demands. Now, the government insists it lacks funds for their demands and urges them to return to work with an offer of 2.4 billion shillings. Now, the unions led by Dr. Davji Atela insist they will continue their strike this Tuesday and urge their fellow doctors to boycott and threats to return to work as well as demonstrate nationwide.
In our strike notice, are all of them achievable? And in any case, one way or the other, they are in their own blueprints. So we are only asking them to meet their end of promises and also bargain, because we have agreement with them. Now, if they are not willing to implement what they promised Kenyan to enhance services, so we want to say categorically that we are not going to relent. Specifically, the AG statement, which is actually following up a statement by the Kindiki last week, which they are trying to intimidate and cowards that we should not go for protest. We are saying we are not contemners of any court order, and we have not breached any constitution article on the constitution. If there is any, they will have mentioned.
We are here to condemn in the strongest word possible the statement of IG Koome. We want to tell Koome that the police have so much work to do than to look after the healthcare workers. Right now, the schools in Baringo, the schools in Samburu, the schools in West Pokot and Turkana are closed. Unfortunately, the IG Koome has never commented on those schools which have been closed because of banditry and criminal activities taking place in those areas. But when healthcare workers who are peacefully demonstrating and exercising their rights as per the Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya, he comes and starts threatening us. That is, he gets strength in that area. We are telling him tomorrow at 9 a.m. we shall be on the road and we shall sing, yes. We shall use vuvuzelas, yes. We shall use whistles, yes. We shall dance, we shall play music, yes. Make noise, for whatever, and sleep on the road, yes. For whatever thing that will happen. Yes. We will not be coward, and we will do what we want under the Constitution.
On the flip side, I want to say that the government is the one on strike. All these public health sector unions, KMPDU, KUKO and KUMLO, we are all been saying we are ready to meet, but it's the government that has continuously been on strike. It's very clear. They should know that by the time they're taking ad stands that we have to suspend our strike before we engage, it is Kenyans who are suffering. Yes. They should also know that it took the Cubans 2 years to be able to practice in Kenya. It is not that easy. And as KMPDU, as all the unions, we have said that there's no amount of threats, no amount of victimizations or intimidation that will make us suspend this particular strike. We will have to sit and have a return to work agreement that actually spells out protections of the collective bargaining agreement that was signed. There is no any other way out of it. They may fire all of us as they have alluded.
Now, the Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Hari Kimutai, has given intern doctors a 2-week ultimatum to return to work, or else their licenses to practice will be revoked. Various government leaders have defended the actions and statements of President William Ruto regarding the government's ability to provide these funds despite their significant claims. This comes after doctors in the country continued their month-long strike, demanding that their issues be addressed and boycotting work, with some leaders urging the doctors to engage in dialogue with the national government and stakeholders within the health sector.
Hiyo itakuwa vigumu sana kupewa leseni. Kwa hivyo tunaomba kwamba hawa madaktari wale wanatakana waende interns waende wakati huu. Tarehe ni 15, lazima wamereport katika zile vituo kwamba waende. Watapata barua yao na ile pesa rais alisema na yeye ndiye mwenyewe alitoa amri. Hiyo ndio pesa sisi kama wizara tutahakikisha kwamba tumetekeleza 2.4 billion.
Tumesikia malilio yenu, lakini ukweli ni kwamba pahali Kenya iko kwa sasa hatuwezi kalipa daktari ambaye bado ni mwanafunzi shilingi 1,200. Hata katika nchi zingine, na si hapa Kenya peke yake, hata katika nchi zingine zote barani Afrika, hakuna nchi, hata zile nchi tajiri kushinda Kenya kama Nigeria na Egypt, ambaye wanalipa daktari ambaye bado ni mwanafunzi ati shilingi 1,200. Sisi tumewaambia ile inaweza kupatikana ni hiyo 70,000.
Na katika kaunti zingine kama mimi Bungoma, tayari tumepromote over 20 doctors. Tumeajiri zaidi ya madaktari 67, health workers. Tumeajiri nurses, tumeweka watu kwa permanent and pensionable. Na najua counties nyingi zinajaribu kufanya kazi hiyo. Jumanne hii, Tuesday, tuko na mkutano ile inaitwa Council of Governors. Pia kuchangia na kuzungumzia
Head of Public Service Felix Koskei has said that public servants will not receive salary increments soon until the economy improves. He spoke at the National Salary Conference during the 3-day session, saying that taxes will be directed towards national economic recovery rather than salaries. Currently, the government spends over 1.1 trillion shillings annually on public servants' salaries. Now, Koskei added that employees' contracts should involve the national treasury.
The Constitution 2010 had envisioned a harmonized approach to the determination of salaries, allowances and benefits, hence the creation of the SRC. Regrettably, this has not been fully achieved, and several institutions continue to issue guidelines and to negotiate CPAs without adequate involvement and consultation with all the relevant stakeholders. This is a situation that we need to correct with urgency. And I'm happy that all the concerned players are gathered here in this room today.
Failure in executing any strategy is a leadership problem. It is not your young talent. I am sure they are yearning to be given the opportunity, but everything starts with us here in the room today. So that's why you're here, because you're the leadership. And your organizations will either fail or succeed because of all of us here as the leadership. So that's why you're here. We expect that you will set the tone, you will set the pace, you will start changing the mindset and get your organizations to think differently and to see possibilities rather than the problems and the challenges that we have today.
Now, the nearby business support centers were launched by the Cabinet Secretary for Trade and Investment, Rebecca Miano, and these centers aim to support entrepreneurs, investors, and those in the production sector in the country to increase their profits and boost the nation's economy. Now, the opportunity will help in acquiring resources and getting services on business and investment plans in the entire business sector in the country. Now, this step has involved private organizations to develop the program, which is expected to start soon to strengthen this initiative.
I'm not only pleased, but very excited to welcome you today as we launch one of the support initiatives geared towards achieving our main objectives of promoting and facilitating domestic and foreign investments, improving trade, and increasing exports. My ministry's mandate is executed in 3 broad objectives. The first one is to promote and facilitate investments, and that is both domestic direct investments and foreign direct investments. Number 2 is to increase the contribution of domestic and export trade to GDP, and to increase the contribution of manufacturing to GDP. And we aim to do this with a lot of ease of doing business. Kenya's aspiration of attaining the status of a newly industrialized country by the year 2030 is premised on the creation of cumulative and sustainable trade, investments, and industrial activities, or an established industrialist looking to expand your operations or set up shop in Kenya. The Karibu Business Support Center is here to streamline, simplify, and expedite your business journey in every step of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key features of this Karibu Support Center is the accessibility. We understand that not everyone has the means or resources to travel long distances for assistance. Therefore, today, we launch a physical walk-in Karibu Center, Karibu Business Support Center at the ministry headquarters, NSSF building on the 16th floor. The services can also be accessed at other centers that we are revamping and establishing in Kisumu at our Kirdi Western Office, Eldoret at KEBS North Rift Office, Mombasa at KEBS Plaza, and Kariobangi South, Nairobi at Musea Center of Excellence in collaboration with the Ministry of Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development.
Let's take a look at the newspapers, what is making headlines. I'll kick it off with the Standard. United by fear factor. United by fear factor. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula held a meeting to, quote-unquote, discuss government agenda at a time the two leaders are under political pressure. Now, political analyst says Gachagua and Wetangula could be united by fear informed by the very person who should be cautious to disorient 2022 political arithmetic. Now, what fear is this? Now, there has been talk of, parties folding to join UDA party, and that is particularly ANC party to fold and join UDA party. And this means if ANC folds to join UDA party, then the former ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi could be very much on his way being or holding up party position within the ruling UDA party. And so that has been one of the things that has been on the talk, which basically now means we're looking at a scenario where we could have Musalia Mudavadi, if the deal goes through and everything goes to plan according to insiders, he could be on his way to be the deputy party leader of UDA in the future. Now, at the moment, UDA party has President William Ruto as the party leader and has Rigathi Gachagua as the deputy party leader. Now, United Democratic Alliance, as constitution, allows for the party to have one party leader and 2 deputy party leaders who all work on programs and logistics. And so there is a push to amend the constitution of UDA to have a party leader and 3 deputies. So it's a question of, if ANC folds to join UDA party, will one of that deputy party leader be Musalia Mudavadi? And so this is united by fear factor, because that particular push to have Musalia Mudavadi as part of the ruling party seems to unsettle quarters of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. So how does Moses Wetangula come in? Now, there's also talk of, just allowing one, larger party, ruling party for that matter, to vie in 2027, and that means we will not have a coalition. What the president is pushing is not to have a coalition of parties in 2027, but to have one big political party that will basically be vying for various seats in government, or at least various seats in various elective positions. And so Moses Wetangula has been adamant to fold his own party, which is Ford Kenya, where he's the party leader. And so this fear of not wanting to fold his party or losing his party, and not wanting to lose his ground on UDA party, is what is the fear factor. So united by fear. Now Wetangula meets Gachagua amid pressure to wind up Ford Kenya. Wetangula meets Gachagua amid pressure to wind up Ford Kenya. Now the meeting comes in the backdrop of emerging political rebellion christened the Tawe movement. The meeting comes in the backdrop of emerging political rebellion christened the Tawe movement. Tawe is Luya, meaning no, or in Swahili hapana. So that's the Tawe movement that has largely now overtaken parts of the Western Kenya, particularly in Bungoma County, where Moses Wetangula comes from. And we saw also when he visited Trans Nzoia County for a burial, where there was a clash between his supporters and supporters of George Natembeya, and eventually which saw Moses Wetangula and his ally, that is CS Susan Nahumicha, leave the place. And we also heard from the Trans Nzoia County Governor George Natembeya later on saying, the Tawe movement basically is there to, rebuke and refuse hypocrisy, to rebuke and refuse, leaders who are pushing their own personal agendas, and says this is a region that now has opened their eyes and is open to accessing all, or inviting any leader that they're interested to listen to come to that region. Now DP's allies, the Deputy President will Rigathi Gachagua's allies defend the move, saying it should not be misconstrued as a strategy for 2027. What move? This particular meeting between the two leaders. Now, other than the pressure to fold his party and join UDA, Wetangula must also be scratching his head on how to deal with the planned impeachment of his ally Health CS Susan Nahumicha. Now, Nyeri Senator Wahome Wamatinga, Gachagua's ally, defended the meeting, saying it should not be misconstrued as a strategy for 2027, and he added that the meeting between the two leaders was important as it sought to align to ensure that all the like-minded leaders in the Kenya Kwanza administration remain committed to their cause, noting that the success and the election will depend on the implementation of promises they made to Kenyans. Now, another source said Gachagua and Wetangula have the same predicaments, and their meeting laid out a strategy on the way forward that will be known in the fullness of time. What predicament? Seems like, Gachagua is sort of being pushed aside. Also sounds like, Moses Wetangula as well is being pushed aside, particularly from a region that has largely been of his support in his political career. While Wetangula is said to have remained adamant to fold his party, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi's ANC, with speculation that the anti-Wetangula sloganeering could be sponsored to pile pressure on him to follow suit. Mudavadi's hint of another wave of political earthquake in a move he said will help strengthen his working relationship with UDA was interpreted to mean that he was ready to dissolve his party, although the party officials later denied the claims. Now, we also had a conversation about whether or not ANC will fold to join UDA party, of which you can go and watch it on our social media platforms on YouTube. However, as of today, united by fear factor, two leaders who seem to have their political predicaments incoming. Is it a question of a meeting to discuss the government agenda on how the Kenya Kwanza administration is performing, or is it a meeting for them to plan what next for their political fates? And so that is the headline on the Standard newspaper. Also, you could see Helen Obiri, who is a marathon runner. She transitioned from track and field to marathon, and Obiri rules Boston Marathon. She wins the 128th Boston Marathon, while compatriots Sharon Lokedi and Edna Kiplagat took second and third positions respectively. So a big congratulations to Helen Obiri for winning the 128th Boston Marathon. She defended and retained her title as the Boston Marathon winner. Also on the newspapers this morning, it's on Simba Arati, the Kisii County Governor, who makes formal complaint against officers at the DCI offices. Now, Kisii Governor was accompanied by lawyer James Orengo and Otiende Amolo. Now, he says politicians are using senior regional police officers to harass him. Now, the Kisii Governor was accompanied by the two lawyers to the DCI headquarters, where he forged a formal complaint against some of the officers from his region. Addressing the media after appearing before the DCI detectives, the two lawyers say they had escorted Arati to ensure action is taken against a top regional police officer they accuse of abuse of office. According to Siaya Governor Arati, or according to the Siaya County Governor, that is James Orengo, Kisii Governor Simba Arati was operating under difficult circumstances caused by some government officials who are using security officers to execute their agenda, which was to ensure that he does not serve the people of Kisii. So Arati makes formal complaint against officers at the DCI. Also, top of the page, Medics plan weekly protests. The doctors say, you know what, we will proceed with our strike and we shall not be stopped. Now, there was a press conference yesterday that involved the KMPDU, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union. We also had the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, and the two unions have said they are not backing down despite threats and what they say is threats and intimidations for them to return to work. Now, health workers unions now defy Koome vote to hold weekly demos. Now, the doctors want President William Ruto to establish a multi-sectoral working team, and they say they have filed defamation case against the IG of police, that is Koome. And so doctor strike enters, I believe should be about the 30th, 30-something days. That is about a month long of striking in the country. So this is the headline on the Standard newspaper. Now let's go to the Daily Nation and see what is brewing right there. Why Atwoli is under siege. Why Atwoli is under siege. Now, Labour Court, Kotu, the Central Organization of Trade Union, Kotu boss, sided with Azimio ahead of 2022 polls. So why is he under siege? Is he cornered? That's the question Daily Nation is asking. Now, the combative veteran trade unionist Francis Atwoli is between a rock and a hard place, with things starting to align against him. From a new push to halt private guards, Kotu deductions, and a bill seeking to end his long career, to criticism over his lukewarm stance on workers' issues from an opposition he dumped after the 2022 elections. His in tray is full. So that is a story that is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Why Atwoli is a man under siege. Now, after crisscrossing the country campaigning for Azimio leader Raila Odinga, the chickens may have come home to roost for the firebrand trade unionist. Now, he has been the Kotu boss for more than 20 years, and there's a bill that has been submitted in Parliament called the Labour Relations Amendment Bill of 2024, which seeks to impose term limits on union officials. Atwoli, who has held his current post at Kotu for 23 years, is not sitting pretty. Now, this particular bill has been submitted to say that union officials as well as federations in the country, have a term limit on how long you can hold a particular position, putting in mind that Kotu has had a Secretary General for about 23 years. His name is Francis Atwoli. And so this is a bill that he says, stands no ground. And, he says political parties basically are run just as much as unions. And that means, a political party leader, there's no term limit of, who's a political leader and for how long that political party leader should hold a position. And so he says, the political parties, or at least the union officials, or the unions and the federations are run just the same. And he is not in support of that particular bill. The bill, which has been tabled for the first reading in Senate, is sponsored by Migori Senator Eddie Okech. Now, Atwoli said trade unions are indispensable, free, and independent organizations that represent the interests of workers and operate in accordance to their constitutions. Now, Atwoli told the senator that unions, like political parties, operate without term limits for their leaders. Now, aside from that particular amendment bill to have term limits on union officials, it's also a question of the push to halt private guards' Kotu deductions. Now, the Private Security Regulatory Authority, PSRA, the Private Security Regulatory Authority, PSRA, is in a move to order the immediate cessation of deduction and remittance of trade union dues by private security officers to Kotu. That has put Atwoli in the spotlight, even as it appeared that some powerful forces in the system wanted him out of the way. The authority has since launched an investigation into the collection and use of all funds deducted and remitted to Kotu by private security companies. Basically, there's a particular percentage is deducted from workers within the private security industry, which is remitted to the Central Organization of Trade Union. And so the PSRA, the Security Regulatory Authority Chief Executive Fazul Mohammed, said on Monday that his hand has been initiated, or this has been initiated, following quote-unquote numerous complaints from private security officers. It was aimed at protecting the welfare of million private security officers. Now, preliminary investigations by the authority said or confirmed that private security guards had made significant contributions to Kotu in the form of monthly union dues running into billions of shillings. So that is issue number 2. Now, issue number 3 is on his stance on workers' strike from an opposition, or at least his criticism over his lukewarm. Lukewarm is basically you're not here or there, for lack of a better word, stance on workers' issues from an opposition he dumped after the 2022 elections. Now, we saw in 2022, in the run-up to the elections, he was such a hard critic of the then Deputy President William Ruto, who was at that time vying for presidency under the UDA party. And, after the elections and after the Kenya Kwanza administration had sworn in, he had a change of heart, giving up his hard stance and saying, anyone has to work with the government of the day. And so he's basically now shifted camp and now supports the presidency, or at least the government, but that has now led him to have criticism from the opposition as well. So has he been cornered? It's a question of how now does he make his moves from this point onwards to ensure that, 1, he does not lose favor with the government, 2, to ensure that he does not lose his seat following that amendment bill to seek to have him leave office, and 3, he does not lose trust with some of the unions that directly contribute to the Central Organization Trade Union. So that is the headline this morning, why Atwoli is under siege. Also, wage bill crisis, push for single payroll. Now, a centralized payroll system for all public sector workers will help weed out wastage through irregular multiple payments to individuals and ghost workers, several state agencies have proposed. Now, that is a story that is on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning, where agencies are pushing for single payroll for public workers, and the state agencies come together to find a solution to the public wage bill crisis. You've just heard from the head of public service, Felix Koskei, who says the government remits about 1.1 trillion shillings as salaries. That's the wage bill, and that is insane, because if you look at the budget of the country, we're looking at the upcoming budget at about 4.1 trillion shillings, and then you're having a wage bill of 1.1 trillion. So if you do the math, you're remaining with 3 trillion shillings, and you have to fund these 3 trillion shillings. It is not enough due to the revenue that is coming in, and so there's a wage bill crisis, and there's a push for single payroll, 1, to weed out ghost workers, 2, to end corruption, 3, to ensure that there's a seamless way of transacting and ensuring that basically everything is accounted for. It's about accountability and responsibility, and so there's an agency or the agencies are pushing for a single payroll for public workers. So that is the headline on the Daily Nation, as well as heavy rains wreak havoc. The question is it raining where you are, and how safe are you? Are there any cases of flooding that have been reported? Because there are parts of the country like Nairobi, by the way, in areas like Mukuru kwa Njenga, Mukuru kwa Ruben, just a couple of days ago, right here at industrial area, where the rains really did the mess. And so unrelenting downpours continues to wreak havoc across the country, leaving a trail of death, displacement, and destruction of property. Now finally, the Star newspaper. Ruto tough choices start to bear fruit. Ruto tough choices start to bear fruit. Now, better times ahead. NEC named the world best performing stock market in Nairobi. The Nairobi Security Exchange has been named the world's best performing stock market in 2024. Now, there's a steady appreciation of the shilling that has cut Kenya's debt by at least 1 trillion shillings. Now, belt tightening lowers cost of living. Kenya shilling to the US dollar as of January 2024 was at 162, but it is currently at 130 in April, when it changes day by day, but the average recorded is 130 in 2024 April. The price of maize flour has reduced from 220 as of June 2023 to 110 in April 2024. Petrol prices have dropped from 217 as of November 2023 to 199 shillings as of March 2024. The price of 2 kilograms of sugar, or a 2 kg sugar bag, has reduced from 500 as of August 2023 to 250 in April 2024. Electricity has gone down 50 kilowatts and has reduced by 6 shillings as of March 2024. The price of a 5-liter cooking oil has dropped from 1,800 as of December 2023 to 1,500 in 2024. So that is a story that is on page 4 and 5 that speaks on President's tough policies breathe life into economy. Tough policies also include the taxation that you've seen on a number of services and products. And so better times ahead, is it? The question asked. And the country is reaping big from the bittersweet economic policies of Kenya Kwanza government. The steady appreciation of the shilling has cut Kenya's debt by at least 1 trillion shillings, and the country's chief banker has confirmed. Now, the government's moves have rallied international investors back into the country to reap an upswing of 49% in dollar returns. This saw the Nairobi Security Exchange named the world's best performing stock market in 2024 in a recent market analysis by Bloomberg, which attributed to the rise to solid economic policies. Now, in media address, the unveiling of the 2023 to 2028 strategic plan, Capital Markets Authority CEO Wycliffe Shamia thanked the government for coming up with innovative economic strategies that have rejuvenated the shilling to below 127 shillings against the greenback. So Ruto tough choices start to bear fruits. The Star's been able to put up some of the products that have recorded lower prices within this month of April, or at least within this year of 2024. Also, top of the page, Kenyans dare to hope as cost of living eases. Boda operator, particularly an instance of one in Umoja State, is a happy man as he gives his rider a ride to Kangundo Road in Nairobi. The 35-year-old has been in trade for more than 7 years and he described last year as the toughest since he went into the border business as fuel prices hit a historic high. Well, that has reduced because the fuel prices were for the month of April to May, 14th April to 14th May were announced, and there's a reduction in kerosene, in petrol, and in diesel. So that is the pardon me, the headline this morning on the Star. Ruto tough choices start to bear fruit. The Daily Nation speaks of why Atwoli is under siege, while the Standard speaks of united by fear factor. All right, so allow us to take a quick break right here on Morning Live, but when we come back, we'll be having a conversation around women and girls empowerment, so stay with us. Our SMS line is open 23059. Keep the conversation going, keep watching EBN. We'll be right back in just